everyone! I can't wait to show you how I created this art journal page. Today I'm working in my Large Dilutions art journal, and I'm going to apply color right away, starting with the Dilutions shimmer paints. Now I hadn't used these shimmer paints before, so I wasn't really sure what I thought about them, and my official review is I absolutely love them. They have the exact same formulation as traditional Dilutions paints, but they have a little bit of mica shimmer to them, so it adds just that sparkle or twinkle to your page when it hits the light without overwhelming or taking over your artwork. I also really like that the mica is the exact same color as the paint, so that again it's not overwhelming and it looks like a glitter explosion on your page. It's very subtle but adds just a little bit of twinkle. I'm putting all this on my page using a baby wipe with fresh lime on the left side and Calypso teal on the right side, using the same baby wipe to help the colors all be cohesive on my page. And after I have that first layer of color down, I'm going to go in with the third color of Dilutions paint, this time using London Blue. I'm applying London Blue with a palette knife to create sunshine rays or circus tent stripes, and I knew that by using a palette knife I was going to get that very loose vintage vibes, as it wouldn't apply the paint 100% full, and that is exactly what I was going for. I'm also taking care to start all of my stripes from the same center point so that they look like they're all evenly radiating out from the center. And I'm just going to keep doing this until I'm happy with the coverage. And as you can see, I kept doing this until I've almost lost the individual rays, and now it just looks like blue fanning out from the center of the page, and I've lost that distinct ray, so I'll have to add that back in later. I'm tearing out a bunch of elements from the Art by Marlene Lime collection of die cut paper, and I have picked out a bunch of circles and a bunch of the borders to create a border down the center of my page. I'm starting out by placing down the circles, that's going to be the base of the border, and they're going to be popping out from behind all of these borders, as you can see here. And I'm just going to start placing these down the page very intuitively. I'm not thinking about it too much. I'm just working from piece to piece and laying it out, and if I like it, I glue it down. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time working on this. My only real thought process is I don't want to have a bunch of the same colors grouped together. I want it to be very intermixed, so purples by yellows, oranges by greens. I don't want to have all of my reds in one single area. So I'm just going to work very quickly, not thinking about it too much, and just going with whatever I think. Place it down, does it look good? Yes, glue it in place and move on. I'm going to put on some music while I work on this border, and I'll be back to talk about the very next steps as soon as the border is completed. And now that my border is complete, I can begin moving on to creating these stripes once again with my Posca paint pen in white. Now, a couple things to note. This page has actually been sitting here for a little bit. I went and had lunch and now I've come back. And I did this to ensure that I had complete drying on my page. The paint is dry, the glue is dry, and I'm not risking ruining my Posca paint pen by getting any of that on my pen. I'm using a dilutions journaling block to create these lines and giving me a guide for drawing a straight line. But you could also just use a ruler or a piece of paper or anything that was sturdy that would help you get a straight line to create with your Posca paint pen. I'm making sure to once again create all of my lines radiating out from the center of the page like I did with the blue paint. But you may notice that this blue paint is actually not matching up with any of my lines, and I'm going to address that in just a second by going back in with the blue paint and filling in some of those lines that I drew with the white paint pen. So now my stripes are much more defined and you can actually see that they are stripes instead of just random blue paint put all over the place. This was not how I originally pictured it in my mind, but one of the things that's really awesome about art journaling is that you can adapt and change your mind as you're working. You don't have to always start out with your original idea, and this is a perfect example of that. The palette knife idea did not work out like I thought, and now I'm adjusting by going in and putting down paint with my finger. And ta-da, you now can see the stripes, mission accomplished. So after I let that blue paint dry 100%, I'm going back in with my Posca paint pen, and now I'm outlining the border on the right side so that there is a white line not only in the stripes, but there's a white line going around the border, and this is really going to bring everything together by highlighting the edges with a white pen. So after I have outlined all of my stripes and I have also created a white border along the right side of the rainbow stripe, it's time to start filling in a few of these rays with doodles. I'm using all kinds of random doodles, so there will be polka dots, there'll be lines, diagonal, whatever I just occurred to me to do is what I did. There is no rhyme or reason to this. It's basically as random as my imagination. And I'm going to just play some music while I finish doing all these doodles, and I'll be back to talk about the next step. And now our work on the right side of the page is complete. We can begin building out the left side of the page. So I'm starting out by placing down a scrap left over from building the center border. And then I'm going to use a couple more elements from the Art by Marlene die cut book to just put to fill this out so that it looks like it's a solid landing piece for my girl to stand on. And then I'm going to glue down this girl. I'm taking care to not put any glue on her left hand because that will be holding the balloons and I want to be able to tuck those balloons underneath her hand. So I'm not putting any glue there until I've glued down the balloons and then I will tack down her hand. So I'm starting out by putting down the lime polka dot balloon and then I'm going to overlay that with the yellow heart balloon. I'm gluing everything down on this page with Stress Collage Medium as it's a really great all-purpose glue. It's good for doing any kind of paper crafting because once you put that down on your page, that is not going to move again. It's permanent. So be sure that you're happy with your decision before you place that piece of paper down because you cannot peel it back up, which is perfect for me when I'm doing this kind of work. Now that all my paper elements are glued into place, I'm going to create some drips with the Dylusion's Calypso Teal paint. I've added some water to it so it's very runny, very loose, and I'm going to use my palette knife to place it down on my page and then tip it so that that paint will start running and moving right away. I'm just going to keep going back in, scooping up little bits with my palette knife and then placing it down on my page. And in this way I can control my drips, control where they go, but also let it be very loose and runny and create that drippy look. And after I'm happy with where the drips are placed, I'm going to lay my book flat and allow it to dry. And now that everything's dry, I wanted there to be a little bit more paint along the top, so I'm just going in with my finger and making it a little bit more full coverage, and then I'm going to let this once again dry 100%. So I'm picking a quote from the Dina Wakley Media Just Words Collage Tissue Pack, and this quote says, "Go where you feel most alive," which I thought was perfectly appropriate for this bright and colorful page. I'm gluing it down with the Distress Collage medium because I don't want to make that tissue transparent. I want it to still have that whitish tissue look to it so that it won't get lost in the colorful background that I've created. So I'm just putting a little bit of the Distress Collage medium on both ends of the quote and gluing it into place. I'm highlighting the quote by adding even more elements from the Art by Marlene Lime Collection die cut pack, and this time I chose a couple bright squares and I'm gluing those into place, and then I'm highlighting a few elements with Ranger Glossy Accents, which is a clear enamel medium, and this will dry 100% clear with a high gloss, so I'm going to put this on the little girl's crown and both balloons to make them reflective and shiny when they're dry. Now this is going to take quite a bit of time to dry, so I'm going to let this dry about 3 hours before I come back in with my Posca paint pen to add more doodles. Once again, this has been drying for about 3 hours, so the glue is dry, the paint is dry, the glossy accents is dry, so I'm not risking anything by drawing with my white Posca paint pen. I'm going to mimic what I did on the right side of the page, now on the left side of the page, by outlining everything. I'm going to put a bold white line around the sidewalk the girl is standing on, the little girl itself, and both of her balloons. A tip when you're doing any kind of collage is if you give it all one cohesive outline, it's going to bring those elements together and look like they're meant to be together instead of just a bunch of mismatch whatever. I'm also going to doodle underneath the sidewalk to create a banner, abstract pendant kind of thing to fill in that area and also mimic the doodles that I did on the right side. Once again, mirroring the elements from the right side of the page onto the left side of the page and making the page seem much more cohesive. And to finish this out, I'm just going to draw a few stars around the page in the empty areas to add even more doodle detail, which I love, and also just to fill in the empty spots. And with these last 2 stars at the bottom of the page, my page is complete. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something and were inspired to create your own art journal pages. I'd love to see what you're making, so be sure to share with us on social media using hashtag #ArtJournalJunction. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of our future mixed media projects and art journaling videos. Have a wonderful day.